Hello, my name is Curtesh and this video is about the equipment I use on my 2018 walking holiday. I went for 4 months and that was 1 month in the Pyrenees followed by south coast of Spain and 3 months in the Alps from Nice to Chamonix following the GR5, then Tour de Mont Blanc followed by Chamonix to Zermatt haute route and ending with the Tour of Monte Rosa. If I give you a quick overview of what I look like. And then we can go through some of the equipment I had. So, if we start off with my clothing, first of all the hat, Outdoor Research Helios sun hat. It worked fine and I could take it, dip it in a stream, put it back on my head, not a problem. However, the only thing is I would actually in future buy a Legionnaires type of hat, which meant you would have a wide brim at the front and on the side and back it would just be a long cloth going down, and the reason for that being is because this will hit the back of your rucksack when it is fully loaded. The shirt which I'm wearing was the first time I've ever worn a shirt. Normally they're long sleeve tops of the athletic type, which were kind of loose, and this one I bought specifically loose, but it's got a special treatment of insecticide. They refer to it as Nausea Life. This also means that I can pull this up and insects won't bite around the neck. The only adjustments I made was here in the arm. You were able to roll this up and then clip it on. I just cut off the clips because I wasn't ever going to do that. And the other thing was just about here, there were in the inside there were a couple of clips just for using it as a hanging loop, but that sometimes interfered with the waist belt. I just cut them off and that was fine. It's got a pocket here which I use to keep my GPS in. The trousers, I only wore these one pair which I took with me, and they've got no rips or tears, and obviously just a little bit dirty, that's about it. And they're Rohan and they're Sentry trousers. So Rohan Sentry trousers. The boots I was using lower combat boots. These I've seen about 800 miles at least, I would say. I've had no issues with them, just need to actually polish them a bit more. With the socks, I started off by wearing 2 thin smart wool liner socks, and then I found that there was a bit of rubbing going on. Now, that hadn't occurred to me before, so all I did was change to a thick thin combo. So I was wearing a thin liner smart wool pair of socks followed by a thicker pair of mountaineering smart wool socks on top of them, and that resolved the issue. I didn't have any problems after that. In terms of my boots, what I did was I took Kiwi shoe polish, a tin over, to actually polish. When I ran out of that, then all I did was buy something else. I couldn't buy Kiwi shoe polish, so I ended up buying Mindel shoe wax instead. It works a little bit differently, but it still did a reasonably good job. And when it comes to walking poles, it's these, which are Black Diamond Alpine Carbon Cork. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I had already used these poles before, and after about 800 to about 1,000 miles or so, obviously there's going to be wear, they're going to break off, which is fine. You can buy replacement ends. Unfortunately, I couldn't get Black Diamond ones, but I did manage to get to Chamonix, and there is a shop called Snell. The person knew what they were doing. They tried to knock them off, they didn't work, so they heated this with a hot air gun, and then that released the glue, took both of them off and put Lecky tips on. They're a bit shorter, but I've used them for about 300 miles since, and they've worked absolutely fine. I always kept them at the long length for going downhill and never adjusted it. All I did is if I was going up a higher point or anywhere else, I just hold them lower down, and if I wanted to, I could actually hold them in different positions just to propel me along or give me support as need be. When it comes to my boxes, I had Icebreaker anatomical long boxes with fly. Definitely get the long version, because the regular version will mean your bits just come out. You want the long version. I actually had bought 4 pairs, but I only ever needed 2. I was wearing one pair and I washed the other pair. I've got another 2 pairs in here which have actually never been touched. I thought them being so thin that they would actually rip or something, but absolutely nothing has happened over 800 miles. The socks, on the other hand, the liner socks obviously will take a lot of wear, and when I started off with 2 thin pairs, obviously that took more wear, but when I was wearing a thick thin combo, it was less wear on them, and that seemed to work quite well. Now what I'll do is I'll pull the other stuff out onto the floor and you can then have a look. Now, looking at the front pouch, what did I have in it? Starting with the pouch itself, it was Z-Packs. It's got a lovely attention to detail, so little pull tabs on either side. What it means is it's easier to open and then close the zippers. The adjustments I made on the rucksack to make it work a bit better. With the actual Z-Packs one, you get a very thin cord-like attachment that will actually take away the stitching and rip away anything you've got it attached to. So what I did is I just used paracord, and that is a greater surface area, much softer, and that worked a treat. And what was actually in my bag? Well, just behind here was my GPS. I won't go into too much detail, but the SatMap Active 20. This is the latest edition. My advice is don't buy it. It's just not up to the job. Do not buy a touchscreen only GPS. Your phone, if you buy the latest flagship edition or the previous year's flagship edition, which should be waterproof, and then double check that it's actually got GPS and GLONASS reception, so you can use offline mapping with it. It'll work as a GPS. You then don't need to buy something like this. The only reason you would actually buy a GPS is if you wanted a push button one only, because that would then work in all conditions. But if you're going to buy something like this, I actually had to disable the touchscreen to make it work better, and then it still froze on me a few times over the period I was using it. The mapping I wasn't happy with. It wasn't seamless going from one country to the next. It's just something I just would advise you not to get. SatMap Active 20, not a good thing to get. In here, what do we have? We have sun cream, more sun cream. You only need 1 tube. Sun stick for the lips, so that was a little bit excessive. Petroleum jelly, that is useful for putting between my toes, stop athlete's foot. Also, I didn't use it this time, but I will do in the future again, which is putting around your bottom and stops rubbing taking place. Waxed dental floss, that's useful after you've been eating dried meat. You get stuck in your teeth. Whistle, never used. We've got a pencil, which I used in conjunction with a pad, which is in a little food bag, just to keep notes of where I was going, what I was going to be doing. A very simple compass by Silver. This I practically never used, as my mapping was on the GPS. The case for the GPS. Another little case, this was for the camera. The camera is actually being used now, is the Canon SX730. That's the SX730. That one is the one I would recommend. It's got 40 times optical zoom, disable the digital zoom. It takes very good pictures and videos. It's really good and well worth getting. Here I've got a mirror as well, headlight, phone, which was the latest one. This is the S8 Plus. Get the latest one or the previous year's edition when you're going. You need to make sure that the phone itself is waterproof, then put a protective case. The case protects it from scratches, knocks and drops. And then with an app that you can put on here, or offline mapping, you'll be able to use this as a GPS. In bad weather conditions you're going to become a bit stuck, so you're going to have to think about that. Also, Purification tablets. These are MicroPro Forte MF1T. They work on both bacteria and viruses. So these are definitely the way to go as far as I'm concerned, because they're super lightweight and they work very well. You do have to wait 2 hours though before you can use the water. I've got disinfecting wipes. These are to obviously clean your hands after you've been to the toilet or before you're going to eat. They come in very useful, and got some tissues as well. So that's what was in my front pouch. The next thing we're going to look at is the rucksack itself and everything that's contained in and around it. It's the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Southwest 3400. The reason why I got this is because it's got 3 large pockets on the outside, and without that I wouldn't have been able to manage, and I know that I make good use of them as well. Issues that I've had with this, there's only been one really, is towards the end it did collapse here, and then that dug into me. That did cause a concern, and I wouldn't have been able to really continue with it being so. But I had the Thermarest Z-Lite Sol camping mat, and then all I did is took 2 sections of it, kept it together and just put it on like that when I put it on and off. It was a bit of a faff, but it did work, and if you do get something that's going to be more lightweight, you're going to have to take more care of it, and there's liable to be more issues with it. It's just a compromise you have to do. Let's see what we got on the outside. We start off with this itself. So you have got the Thermarest Z-Lite Sol. This is one of the camping mats which I carry. I measured it up so it was slightly above my head and then down to about midway down my thigh. So it's reasonably long. My intention was to use it as a sit pad and then to keep about a couple of sections, maybe 4, and then to get rid of the rest. What happened was I was using a big Agnes inflatable camping mat, and when I started I was in South Spain where there's lots of sharp plants with like pine needles and other things, and they were poking right through this. So an air mattress wasn't going to stand a chance, even though I kept this underneath. So I couldn't fix the other one, so I sent it back and then I received another one. Meanwhile, I used this for a couple of weeks. This is horrendous to lie on. Initially it caused me backache, and then I got used to it, and it was okay. However, didn't sleep very well, and I was very appreciative when I received my other camping mat. But that is a lifesaver. I mean, it actually worked as a camping mat, and then I also used it as an aid to give me extra cushioning on the rucksack. So this has multiple uses, and I used it as an exercise mat as well. The tent I used was the Big Sky International Chinook 1P. This is an excellent tent. It's an outer pitch first, or all-in-one, which means if it's raining you can pitch up the outer. It's a freestanding one. It works brilliantly. Definitely I would recommend this one. I did have to patch it up, and there was an issue with it because initially when I bought it I didn't check it properly, and it was coming a little bit apart at the seams, but it did hold through the whole journey, so it served its purpose. Again, it weighs about 1.5 kilos, I'm guessing, with all the bits in, and at the end of the day, it's a lightweight thing, so you can't expect it to last forever. And here we have my jacket, which is the Arctrex, I'm just looking here, Beta SL Hybrid. It worked fine. I didn't really use it too much, but when I did, it was great. All I do is just roll it up into its own hood, then you can keep it out of the way. For my over trousers, I kept the Berghaus Pack Light. I'm just having a look here. Yes, over trousers. The only thing is, though, make sure you get them oversized because they do come up a bit more narrower. So they worked well. This is a snow peg. It wasn't. I thought in theory I could use it for snow, but the other main reason I was going to use it is to dig a hole and to move soil. So when I did a poo, I could then cover it up with this. This doesn't actually touch poo. You dig a hole, you do the poo, and then you put the soil back over it. So that's what that was for. It worked fine. I never used it for snow, so to be quite honest, I could have used the other one which I had, which was an orange one and plastic, and was a bit lighter than this. I carried a rubbish bag. This is vitally important because obviously you're going to take your bits of rubbish with you, but I also took the toilet paper that I was using. Initially I was using toilet paper, and then I switched to wipes, the same wipes that were in my front pouch. I know they're disinfecting ones, probably not the best for you wiping your bottom, but I found that they do clean your bottom better. So in future I would actually buy just the normal wipes that you would use for wiping your bottom, and just put up with the extra weight and bulk that would involve. Water, took it from streams and fountains, using a 1 litre platypus collapsible bottle. I was usually using about 3 of them, so here we have another one as well. And then on the other side, it's important not to put everything on one side because that makes it unbalanced, and then it can cause you back problems or other issues. So it's best to remember that. Here we have another one, and to collect the water, I'll just put this down. I had a funnel, which obviously I'll then put in there, and then I'll get the water, pour it in. Then I put my one tablet in, close this, and put it in there, walk along after about 5 minutes at least, making sure it's dissolved. Just give it a quick shake, and then open this just so you see water kind of fill up and just flow over just a little bit, and then close it. What that means is the high concentration of the chemical inside will then disinfect and clean not only the water but also the inside of the lid and around the mouthpiece, which is where you're going to be putting your mouth. I did also keep a little cloth here that was in theory to filter out anything if there were any large particles. To be quite honest, there were tiny bits of stuff going into the water sometimes. I never bothered doing that, but the water sources I was taking it from were good. But this also became useful for wiping the tent sometimes or other things. And that is what was on the outer side. In here, in the pockets, here I've got a balaclava. So that was handy at hand, which I rarely used. I think I used it probably about twice, and that was during the night, just to keep me a bit warmer. And that was more at the beginning when I was in the Pyrenees, I believe. On the other one, let's see what we've got. Head net. Now, this is a Sea to Summit Ultra Mesh head net. The reason why I took this is because when you're going into a hot place, or even other places, mosquitoes could be a real nuisance, and they're going to drive you to distraction. So having that, and it doesn't weigh much either. Now, one thing that was in my jacket, which I ordered at the same time as the Z-Pack's front pouch, is their mitts. And these mitts are absolutely brilliant. They weigh next to nothing, and they're waterproof, which obviously means they're protecting against the wind and cold, and they keep your hands just a little bit warmer. I only used it rarely, but they are really worth having. In the UK, I don't know if I'd use them. I might need something a bit more durable, simply because it's more likely to rain. You're going to need to use them more often. But for where I was, it worked fine. Now, if I just open this up, as you can see, I've had to do a little repair job here. That was my fault because of what I had inside. I had crampons at one point, and there's another point here where I had some batteries and stuff. And the battery and the charger, which I charged up something, it was warm. I put it in with the batteries. It obviously must have heated up and then caused damage. This, I just used tenacious tape and super glue, stuck it on, and it's done a perfect job. And it's lasted throughout the entire journey, not an issue at all. The initial problem was mine anyway, and this one here was a little hole caused by my crampons. Again, that was user error. Now, if I move all of this out of the way, now you can see that this part of the pack comes onto your back, and it does have two metal stays. However, being lightweight, it's not heavily padded, so anything coming on the other side is going to poke through. If you've got something hard and sharp, it will come through and you will feel it immediately. So you have to pack things differently. Now, inside here, what have we got? I've got wallets which I bought because I couldn't buy a map case in Zermatt because I had to buy 12 on Rosa map, my GPS mapping, and didn't have it on there. It has a pack liner inside. This is an Osprey one. I think it's about 110 litres or something, which is massive compared to the actual rucksack size, but you do need to get it oversized so you can put everything else in, and I made the right choice. I've got a carry bag with some clothes that need washing in them. You can see that my crampons which I had were up against the back. These are Petzl Irvis Hybrid. I had to get some adjustments to this. When these come, they come with a either a bail or a clip-on front. So since I was wearing normal boots, obviously put the bail on at the front. At the back it comes with a clip-on, which means they're designed for mountaineering boots. They do not work with normal boots. So what I did was, at one point I managed to get hold of these back ones, which was suggested to me, which are bail at the back as well, which means these then fit on any boot, and that did work. So they're brilliant for that. However, for the weight of them and everything, to be quite honest, especially if you're going over rock, I would advise you to get a proper full metal one with a metal plate running through, because if this gets cut, these are useless. These are okay for snow and a little bit of ice, so if you're going over glacier, they'll be fine. Going over rock, this is not advisable. I would not advise you to use these with rocks. If you're going over a little section, that's fine. Food bag. You can see that these are co-op bags. Now inside here, obviously apart from my food, long handled spoon by Sea to Summit, titanium. I needed to buy a can opener for Switzerland, so when I was eating out of a can, they all obviously, you need to get out your food. In France you can just buy the pull top cans, but in Switzerland I had to make do with that. Money belt. Obviously you need to keep your passport with you at all times, especially in France, and if you're not white. And then the other thing is the knife. The reason why that's in there is that's where the food was kept. And this was absolutely essential for cutting up meat, vegetables and stuff, and then just opening packets. This is a LTC, this is legal to carry. I can't remember the actual brand. It's from Sweden. Farraven, or I don't know what it is actually. Anyway, so that was a good little knife. So the only utensils I had was a long handled spoon and a knife. Here we have my toiletry bag. Now, here we do have flushable proper wipes. In the end, this is what I bought. They definitely clean your bottom better than just ordinary tissues, and they're more gentle on your bottom as well. So this is the way to go. Nalgene bottle, keep shampoo in there, washing myself completely top to bottom, so that works. Don't use shampoo bottles on their own, usually they're going to leak. You need to have one with a screw top lid. I have toilet roll. You're still going to need it to blow your nose, and you might need it if you get an injury to mop up blood and stuff. I kept a little food bag. In this one I actually did have for quite a while a little soap bar for washing clothes. And then in here, in my little bag, I've got some deodorant, and even if I was by myself, I can smell my own stink, so this makes a good difference after I've had a wash. Toothpaste. Here you got hair bands. I've got a comb, flat one, I just cut off the handle. And we've got nail cutter, tweezers, and obviously a toothbrush as well. I started off by buying one and then cutting it in half, or when I was going along and I had to buy another one. I didn't have any means of cutting it in half. I don't think it makes too much difference. Now, towards this end here is a dry bag with my tent inner. I would keep the tent fly sheet and the poles and pegs and everything on the outside, which would remain soaking wet, and the tent inner remains dry up against your back. So, another dry bag, your electronics. This is a monster size battery pack. It's got a quick charge as well, and it's got 2 ports for charging. So when you connect it up, you can actually charge it in half the time. I believe it was about 6 hours to get this fully charged up. And let's see, it was the Anker Power Core 26,800. So the Anker Power Core 26,800. It's a monster one. For what I was doing, didn't really need it, but if I'm going to be using my phone more in future, I might keep that. And in here we've got some map cards. We've got SanDisk Ultra memory cards. I found that about 32 gigabytes, to be quite honest, will be good enough. So instead of just getting a super big one, which I even had a big one than that, I had a 64 gig one. 32 gigabytes is fine, and if you have about a few of them, maybe about 2 or 3, that would be more than ample. You've got some cables and some adapters for my phone, because I was able to do processing for videos on my phone, which was quite good. And my phone was Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. There we have that. Now this, when I started off, was full of batteries, lithium-ion batteries, about that much, which cost me probably about £130 or so. So it was ridiculously overpriced. I could have in future bought a solar charger, which would have saved me a whole load of money and weight as well. So obviously the important thing is you definitely need to have adapters. I've got a UK plug here. So this is the to do RAV Power Quick Charge 3 30 watt 2-port USB. Make sure you've got at least 2 ports, if not more. And this is a quick charge, so you can charge it up faster. And then I've got a travel adapter. This one is for Switzerland specifically because it's got 3 pins. If you're going anywhere else in Europe, you can just use one and this will cover everything. So I had another one. I had one originally and then I managed to lose it and then I had to buy another one. So there you go. And what else have I got in here? I've got some spare batteries for the camera, which are obviously essential as well. Now, everything else, this is my silk liner. I used it on top of my camping mat because if I lay directly on my camping mat, then I will get sweaty and there will be dampness there, and then this actually absorbed it. The thing with this one is this comes from RAV, and the problem with this is this is the blue one and it really washes out the color. Do not put anything else in this when you go and put this in the wash or wash it by hand, because this is going to leak a lot of blue color. Now the main camping mat that I was using was this, and this is the Thermarest X-Therm Max regular size. So that's the Thermarest X-Therm Max regular size. The X-Therm is the warmest one they do, R value of 5.7, and it's max because it's a rectangular. My advice is get the rectangular one. I will be buying the X-Therm Max large because for my comfort needs I much rather prefer to have a larger size, which means you can turn and it feels much more comfortable. But this is what I had at home to have sent to me, and I was grateful for that because after 2 weeks of the Z-Lite Solid it was horrendous. Then comes sleeping bag, and as you can see I just shoved it in. I didn't use the actual stuff sack it comes in, because if you try to put things in stuff sacks and whatever and then try to put it in, it takes up more space. I didn't have that space, and to shove it all in I just literally just put this in. This is the first time I've done it. I've not had any issues with it, and it worked perfectly. So I would do it again. And this is the Rad Neutrino 800. I've used this every single day in the UK, in the Pyrenees and Alps for a period of about at least 15 months. I've not had any issues, and this is a very delicate fabric, but it is a warm one, so pretty much all of the time I'm using it as a duvet. There's only been a few handful of occasions where I've actually got in it and zipped it up and used it like you would expect to, because it is so warm. It's the Rad Neutrino 800, so this is a must. Now, I do not keep the sleeping bag, right at the bottom. You will get condensation and problems like that coming through, especially if it's raining or if it's wet. So I would advise you to put something else at the bottom which is giving a little bit of coverage, and then that means that this is not coming into direct contact with the bottom. The battery ran out there, I just had to recharge and start up again. Beneath the sleeping bag, you obviously need to keep that gap and something else there. Well, this is reasonably substantial. And 2 survival blankets taped together, that would have gone in the inner of the tent at the bottom. on the inside to stop things from getting wet if it had been a torrential downpour. Thankfully I didn't need that one. This was essential. Multivitamin and mineral tablet. Make sure you get the multivitamin and mineral. It doesn't need to be expensive. Most of them are regulated now, so they all contain pretty much the same amounts of whatever is in there. This just stops you from becoming deficient in anything major. It's a temporary fix. Obviously it doesn't fix a healthy diet, which I definitely was not on. More purification tablets, well, lots of them, and these I will definitely use again. These are my number one method of choice for purifying water. It's the most lightweight. It's Micropore Forte MF1D. So we got those. Here we have a little fixing thing. I've got shaving blades. I bought these by mistake. I should have bought something which was more like this. If you buy something that's got a hold on it like this, and I think these are the Mach 3s, you can then shave yourself much more easily. If you've got something like I got here, these are impossible to hold, and it's not very good. What else have we got? Permanent marker. You don't really need this. I only bought this just to mark the reflective parts on my tent. So you don't actually need that to take with you. This is some super glue, and I've got two little tubefuls here. Only one large tubeful really. Paracord. That is actually useful for making up a washing line, or if you need it to tie up something, or maybe your shoelaces have gone. Cotton pads, if you do cut yourself, then that is useful. And I think I did use that once. Here we have Dettol, which is again in a bottle, screw top. Don't use anything else. I have a lighter. Practically never use this. The only use for this is if I cut the paracord, it's just to burn the ends off. I never make fire to cook with, so it's not really used for that. This is kind of like first aid for everything really. First aid for the tent, which is tenacious tape or the rucksack, and then what else have we got? Sticky patches for camping mat. I've got needle and thread for clothes. If you need to stitch anything up, I never had to do anything, so weren't really required. I've got little skin sutures, so if I did develop a little cut, I could do that. Here I have a spare cap. This is actually very lightweight, takes up practically no space, but if you lose the cap for your platypus bottle, it becomes useless, so carrying a spare one is very good, although I've never needed to use it. And here we've got some tape. This is quite good, reasonably sticky. Use that the odd time. And I had gaffer tape, which I put around a big piece of plastic. I used this once, just a tiny bit, on my tent, but it was actually too strong. Tenacious tape is a bit better, it's a bit more flexible, and I don't know if this is useful to bring along. Then I got some tablets, a course of antibiotics, paracetamol, aspirin, and I think that was it. Yes, I think that. Loctite Super Glue 3. It's a bit difficult to actually buy in the UK, but you can get hold of it in Spain, I think, or was it France anyway. So that definitely is good. I've got two other tubes there. Spare carry bag, and again, these ones which I've been using, these are not waterproof. They're a bit more durable, but water will go through it straight away. A sock, and here we have Mindel shoe wax in there. A spare pair of glasses in a case, so that's very good, just in case I lose my glasses which I had, and I didn't have any problems wearing my glasses, by the way. On my last big journey about 2 years ago, when we crossed the Pyrenees, I was wearing contacts, and it's a bit of a faff. I'm not really that keen on changing my disposable lenses every day, so you need to wipe your hands with something that's gonna kill all the nasties. My glasses I didn't have any problem with. This is just a sock and a bag. This is where I keep my kiwi shoe polish, but I didn't have any, so you can see I was using the other one. And that kind of my fix kit, as it were. Fix your vitamin deficiency. Then we've got clothes in 1, 2 dry bags. In here I've got 2 of the Anatomica boxes, long, and you need to have them long, because if you have them short, your bits will come out. And these have never been used, so that's really good. Extra pairs of liner smart wool socks, which I took with me. I took loads of sets. These I bought whilst I was on the go, just to stop any rubbing. These are smart wool mountaineering socks. And a couple of pairs of the mountaineering ones, and many more pairs of the other liner ones. I had 2 shirts, by the way. Right, let's see, towards the bottom now. Now, these are the Soberthane double strike insoles, essential for my boots. They work in combination together. With these, I never had any problems with my feet as such, because this was absorbing all the shock. I did in my one of these other packs, I think it's that one, carry some scalpels, and the reason for that is to actually cut off dead skin and to actually cut off my nails. And I did take off 5 of my toenails when there became problems, which isn't an issue for me, because after you've got no nails, they take ages to grow back, and then you don't have any problems with the nails. Here I had some spare new platypus bottles, as you can see, they've been used. At the bottom. And what's this? This is for the Thermarest camping mat, but I didn't use it because it takes up less space if you just keep it flat on there. And what else? One more thing in here. This is the Rab Neutrino 800 forgot what you call it, but anyway, it's to keep the sleeping bag in, but I didn't need it. I could have just left that at home actually. And this is the this is a 100 litre pack liner, and that's it. And inside here is just empty. There is I can see there's a bin liner in here as well, which is actually collapsing onto the bottom, which adds more water repellency, which is good. Right, So those are all the things I had, and I'll give you a little talk now. Lastly, just a few pointers. I'm just going to refer to my sheet. I originally did have the wrap continuum jacket. I used it in the Pyrenees when I was there because it was colder, but then as soon as I got to sunny old southern coast of Spain, I was not required to send it back. I did try Superfeet Trailblazer at my former workplace, and it actually caused a hole in the back. And I wasn't really impressed with them. Now, although I technically wasn't walking in a straight line, I thought, well, that shouldn't really be happening. So I went to what I was using before, which was double strike super thin insoles, which I hadn't had any problems with, and actually made the right decision. I think I will now stick with that. So we got the belt. You will lose weight. So I used Arcade Ranger Adventure belt. If I just show you here, this is the belt. There's only one problem with it. It's fine and slim, and it's kind of stretchy as well. It's just this, there's so many little bits that you can get caught in here. There's a bit of a faff sometimes, but apart from that, when it's clipped on, it works perfectly fine. So that was that. The RAV power, I already talked about adapters, I believe. So that's the one I had, Quick Charge 3. And I think that was it. So, in summation, it was a good trip. If I was doing it again, I would change on certain things. Even though the Rucksack did perform reasonably well, I would actually get something which has got more padding, more support down the back, so you don't have to worry about how you're packing things so much, and just have something that's a little bit more basically durable and works for you. And I would definitely ditch the SatMap Active 20. I'd use my phone, and I would actually buy a solar panel, try it out, see how that worked. Obviously you're still going to need a power bank, and that may work. So the combination of that and the solar charger together. The sleeping bag, Radnitrin 800 worked a treat, so that I'll definitely use again, no issues there, just need to send it away to be washed. And the camping mat, I would definitely get the Xtherm Max, but this time large, so it's more comfortable. Especially as being weight conscious, you'd go for that. If I wasn't worried about weight, I would definitely go for the Xbed Sinmat 9 long and wide, which I already have, which is the most comfortable and very warm camping mat. So that being said, now what about the tent? Now the tent did quite well. I did buy it for hot summery conditions, which is going to allow maximum airflow, and for that it works well. However, it doesn't work well in the cold, because it will let air through and it will be cold air, and it obviously is not designed for winter. But for my journey, my trip, it did well. I'm definitely a fan of it in summer conditions. For winter, you'd need a different tent. I will need, at the very least, a brand new fly sheet. The poles which I've got for this tent still working fine. Fly sheet is come to the end of its life, which I kind of expected, being lightweight and more delicate. The tent inner still has some life in it, so we'll have to see what I do about that. And then the rest, well, the crampons. One thing I learnt about these was trying to go lightweight and small, you have to be careful. if I was going in proper winter conditions, or if I knew there was going to be snow and ice and rock, I would just get a proper pair of crampons which fit on boots and actually have a solid metal plate as opposed to Dyneema cord, because on rock that's just going to get shredded and it doesn't work. So that's one thing. And it depends on the journey in which you're going. For much of the time you can probably get away with using just walking poles and just walking across carefully. If you do get crampons, then you can probably manage pretty much most things, although I can't advise people to use just crampons and walking poles by themselves, because obviously you land yourself in trouble. But for me, these are the experience I've got. I think I'll be able to manage most things, and that's about it really.